Good afternoon. As you know, I am Susan Spero, and I am relatively skilled at managing people and relationships, but not so adept at managing paper and data. And my deficit is exacerbated by pack rat tendencies, which cause me to say things like, oh, that's an interesting article. I think I'll file that in case I need it later. Or I'll put that important file in the to be read later stack. And I'll read it later. And the first problem is that I may not file it promptly, and if I do, I may forget that I have it. Second problem is I generally don't leave time for the read later pile, so the pile gets bigger and grows like a fungus on my desk and collects dust. And a third self-defeating belief, even though we're supposed to be thinking of positive things here, a third issue is I say to myself, well, there's an order to my disorder, and I can paw through any stack and find exactly what you need. I'm sensing that some of you were late to this. Some of the time that works, some of the time not so much. So when my office got to a level of clutter that was driving me nuts and making it difficult to find important things, I knew that I needed to hire Tammy, the incredibly skilled and patient professional organizer. And she promised to help me analyze what I saved and why I saved it, which made me nervous. And then she said, I will help you develop a new and sustainable system that will help you keep your office organized and deal with the files more effectively. I'm going to move this because it's a little bit loud. And the system will better support your work, and it'll line up with how your brain functions, which I thought was no small feat. How my brain functions? Okay, tell me about it, Tammy. And as I worked with Tammy, I realized that in order to sort and analyze and pare down and redesign and implement a new system, that it was a great metaphor for what we need to do to implement change in organizations, because they both require the same scope. In my mind, S stands for system or structure. In order to implement a change, you need to have a plan, you need to have a framework so that you can organize the changes that you want to make, whether you're changing how you file papers or how you increase the profitability of your organization. You need a rationale with clear guidelines to keep the change project on track, to keep it focused. And C stands for confidence. There's all sorts of motivational research that says if you don't believe, if you don't have the confidence that you can actually accomplish something, you won't even try. Example, I speak Spanish. So if you said to me, Susan, as Karlin did many years ago, if you say to me, Susan, I want you to brush up on your Spanish so that 1 month from today, you can go to Barcelona and teach a seminar in Spanish. I'm going to get a tutor, I'm going to study, I'm going to drink a lot of coffee, and in 1 month I will be ready. Conversely, and that is because I have the confidence that I can do it. Conversely, if you said to me, Susan, in 1 month I want you to go to Beijing and teach a seminar in Chinese, I'm not even going to try because I don't read the Chinese alphabet. The only word I know in Chinese is xie xie, which means thank you. This is not going to get me very far. I don't have the confidence that I could do it, so I'm not even going to try. 30 years as a consultant and coach have taught me that we transfer our skills from one area of proficiency to another. So, for example, if I know that I have the discipline to exercise and eat a healthy diet, it gives me the confidence to know that I can develop the discipline to reorganize my office. Transfer of skills. O stands for openness. I need to be open to asking for help. And I need to be open to trying out new ideas. I'd been thinking about the reorganization for months, but I had to be ready to call Tammy up and ask her for help and at least consider the things that she was proposing. I didn't have to accept them all. Some of them I knew wouldn't work, but I had to be open to at least consider new possibilities. Now, some people would rather have a root canal with no Novocaine than ask for help. We know who they are and don't name names. They don't want to admit that they need help. They don't want to bother other people. But unless you are open to asking for help and trying out new things, you'll have trouble making the changes. P stands for practice. Practice in order to create new habits. No matter how elegant a system Tammy designed with me, it's not going to be sustainable unless I'm willing to be diligent to practice the new behaviors and tools that are part of the new system. This is frankly the aspect of reorganization of my office that is the toughest for me. This is a work in progress. This noodle has not stuck to my cerebral wall yet. It's way too easy to say, I'll do that new system thing later, and pretty soon the day is over, the month is over, and it never gets done. And we see the same thing in organizations. Corporate executives, team leaders, are ready to bail when they hit the first speed bump in the first week of a new project. They're not willing to practice it. There was a study in 2010 about habit formation, or, this is such a great word, automaticity. Who knew? And the study suggested that on average, we need to practice a new behavior at least 66 times in order for it to become habit, so we don't have to think about it like brushing our teeth or turning on the turn signal. Obviously, 66 consecutive days are going to be better than 66 days spread out over 3 years, for example. And it comes back to discipline. I need the discipline to ensure that I'm really going to practice for at least 2 months to make it stick. Same is true for organizations. Let's say we're implementing a new software system, which frankly I think is worse than a root canal with no Novocaine, or a new protocol for virtual meetings. We need the discipline to practice the new system for at least 2 months to decide if it's working and what needs to be tweaked. And finally, E stands for experimentation. We have to be willing to take risks. When I was working with Tammy, in order to avail myself of her skills and her tools, I had to be willing to try some new things. I had to have the courage to experiment, even experiment with things that were out of my comfort zone. And I realized that the things that she suggested that made me squirm the most were the ones I needed to pay the most attention to, even if I couldn't implement them right away. Higher squirm level, probably higher importance. We've heard earlier today about William Bridges and his work in transitions and the 3 zones that he talks about that we go through, the first being endings, leaving the old ways behind, the second being the neutral zone, that limbo, no man's land, where we haven't totally left the old ways behind and we haven't totally embraced the new. And the third, ironically, being new beginnings, where we're really ready to embrace the new. We're off and running and hopefully thriving with the new software, the new meeting protocol, whatever it is we're trying to change. I really believe that the hardest of those 3 zones as we transition into a new something is that second one, that neutral zone, as other people have talked about today. And the personality types who love ambiguity and are willing to experiment tend to thrive in that neutral zone and can be a very creative time. The personality types that want everything familiar and nailed down, they tend to struggle even more when they're confronted with a major change. So I hope that scope, system, confidence, openness, practice, and experimentation will help you effectively plan and implement whatever change you want to make, whether it's for yourself, your home, your office, your business. And I wish you great success and adventure along the way. Thank you very much.